da 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 ya da da ya da ya da ya da da. If you don't know the nigun, we'll do a bit of repetition now. Let's try that. And then it concludes. Let's try it again. You have these handouts. I'd like to ask you to open handout. Here we are connected with our people in Zoom. On the page number 2, if you can. Can I ask you to read, Rabbi? Sure. Okay. Don't yet. Here we are. And that's why, in the context of prayer, that's exactly what we do. We try to alienate all these distractions that we might have. We try to put them aside. We try to quiet them down and focus. And it's not easy because we have many noises. Right, can I ask you now to go?
Prayer is like playing.
The microphone.
Prayer is like playing jazz by Rabbi Levi Wyman Kelman. Prayer is not entertainment. Prayer is a discipline, like music, running, or meditation. If you are here to observe, you will be bored. Prayer is like playing jazz. The more you pray, the richer your prayer becomes. Musicians improvise on a set of musical themes. They can play together in harmony one moment, and in the next, they each play at their own rhythm, at their own volume. Sometimes we all pray in harmony. Other times we each pray at our own rhythm and our own volume. The Siddur is a framework, like the page of notes for the jazz player. If you choose to use these words, know that you are not praying if you only read the prayers. One should try to reach a proper balance between the prayer and the prayer, and between the prayer and other prayers. Know that according to tradition, praying includes both music and silence. Try to relax from all tension. We all come to synagogue with mixed feelings. We are aware of these feelings in prayer. We do not try to escape from them. We let our feelings influence our prayers, and our prayers influence our feelings. If you do not know the Siddur well, start by trying to find words with which you can feel comfortable. In almost every word in the Siddur, we can find associations from the Torah, Talmud, Midrash, Kabbalah, and modern literature. The more you are tuned into these connections, the richer the prayer can be. The band meets at least every week. It could well be that the words or melodies are not familiar to you. Remember, any discipline is difficult at the beginning, and practice enables you to feel free.
Thank you, Rabbi. We'll now turn our Siddurim to page 129. It is a practice in Sephardic synagogues before beginning with Kabbalat Shabbat to sing from the Song of the Songs, from Shir Ashirim. Rabbi Akiva once said, in Kol Ashirim Kodesh, in all the songs have a layer of holiness, of sacredness. Then the song of the song is our Sanctus Sanctorum, is the Holy of the Holies. And the reason we start with Shir Ashirim Shabbat, with the Song of the Songs is because they are songs about love. And somehow we try to tune our hearts to this idea that Shabbat is a loving gift. So we will start with this, and after lighting Shabbat candles, we'll talk a little bit about the structure of Kabbalat Shabbat, and of course, we'll pray the structure of Kabbalat Shabbat. Page 129. Oh, Dili, Manilo, Haroe, Bashoshanim, Dodili, Misotolam, Minamidbar, Misotolam, Minamidbar, Dodili, Manilo, Haroe, Bashoshanim, Dodili, Mekuteret Mor, Morulemona, Mekuteret Mor, Ulemona. Dodili, Manilo, Haroe, Bashoshanim, Dodili. We'll now turn our Sidurim to page 120 in order to light Shabbat candles. Rabbi, can I invite you to light Shabbat candles? Now, who knows why we light two Shabbat candles? Is that tradition or law? In the meantime, come. Is that the tradition or is a law? Tradition or law? Tradition, law. Well, it's a law. And usually our law is our tradition. They come together. No, sorry, friends. But as you know, an important thing about these Shabbat candles, they stand for two things. Twice in the Ten Commandments, the Ten Commandments appear in the Torah. They appear twice, once in the book of Exodus and the other time in Deuteronomy. And once in the context of Shabbat, we are told, Zchor et Yom HaShabbat lekodsho, you shall remember the Sabbath day. And later on they fix that and say, no, keep it. Shmor et Yom HaShabbat lekodsho. And therefore, shall we remember, shall we keep it? We say the two of them. And therefore we have two Shabbat candles. Now the first verse of Lichadodi. Shamor besachor bedibur echad. You shall keep it and you shall remember. It's like one commandment. Dibur echad, one commandment. But we have two candles, and we will light our Shabbat candles. They are on you can find the blessing on page 120, and you can follow our friend Rabbi Hugh. Some people are accustomed to rise for this. Some people remain sitting. We first light the candles, and then we say the blessing. Many close their eyes while saying the blessing. So once the blessing it's been recited, we somehow discover the Shabbos light. Amen. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbos. Good to see you. Good to have you here. You may be seated. We'll now turn our Sidurim to page 130. This is time to have a quick conversation about the structure of Shabbat. Remember, it's a workshop, so we need to talk about this. Now, if we did it every Shabbat, it would never come again. But this is going to be only one Shabbat. Maybe we'll do it once again in 2 years. But important thing about this this section of the service. This is relatively new. It didn't exist before. The only thing that we had for Shabbat, for Friday nights, when we welcome Shabbat in the time of the rabbis, was a little addition to the Amidah, to the standing prayer. Kabbalat Shabbat, all these songs of welcoming Shabbat, they weren't a part of our liturgy. There was a group of Jews at some point that started to seek for more spirituality, more connection. They wanted more. And in that context, the Kabbalat Shabbat was created. It was an act of creativity. And it was out of the search for a spiritual connection, because otherwise, the prayer on Friday night started at Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu, which is Mariv Shel Shabbat, is the evening prayer of Friday night. And it was pretty normal as any other day, with the only difference that the Amidah, the standing prayer, was a bit shorter. We'll talk about Amidah later. And had an addition that was between the Amidah and the Kiddush, the blessing for the wine. And so they decided to bring, for every single one of the days of the week, a psalm. When you hear me chanting between those psalms, it's because I kind of want to acknowledge the different days of the week, because I want to count 7 somehow. So when we do 3, we do 2, we do 4, sometimes we skip several. But as a matter of fact, Shabbat is an invitation to fall in love, to treasure our routines. And therefore, we look at the days of the week, and we acknowledge them. And we acknowledge each of them in the context of Kabbalat Shabbat with a psalm. Now, Psalms 95 to 99 before Lecha Dodi, with the exception of 29, for which we stand, which is an hymn, is an anthem. Mizmor LeDavid will sing a piece of that. And then after that, after Lecha Dodi, we'll talk about Lecha Dodi, we have Psalm 92 and Psalm 93. 92, which is an out of context, is a bonus track. It's called Mizmor Shir LeYom HaShabbat. The story says that Shabbat complained that in Shabbat all the psalms were dedicated to God. And so the rabbis put after Lecha Dodi a song to Shabbat. And what's the second sentence of Mizmor Shir LeYom HaShabbat? Tov leodot l'Adonai, right? They get back to the topic, right? It's good to be grateful to God. And why? Because to some extent in Shabbat we are being grateful for the infinite source of creation. That's the real topic. That's what we are looking for. Last thing, each of these psalms has a little topic, and they are very symbolic. We might start on them. So we will now turn our Sidurim to page 130. There are many melodies for all these poems, and as you have heard me, these psalms are like steps in a stairway, because we are literally going up in the psalm, 95, 96, 97. It's literally what we are trying to do with the readings and also with our souls, with our spirits. Lechu neranena l'Adonai nari aletzur isheinu nekadma fanav betoda bismirot nari alo nekadma fanav betoda bismirot nari alo. We turn to page 131, and with the same melody, what does it mean to sing a song of renewal, a new song? To take the materials that we have in our daily lives, the things that we experience in our routines, and experience for them a different sound, a different rhythm as we welcome Shabbat. Shiru l'Adonai, shir Hadash, shiru l'Adonai, kol haaretz, shiru l'Adonai, baruch Shem עמו, מסרו מיום ליום ישועתו, ספרו בגויים כבודו, לכל העמים נפלאותיו. בללי לי 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 ירה לי 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 And sometimes what I do, and you can do too, as we are going from Psalm to Psalm, we usually go to Psalm 98, but kind of when we go through 97, I throw a sentence. I say, hey, there was a Wednesday. There was a Tuesday here, and something happened there. And it's, for my personal practice, a way to acknowledge maybe something that I wanted to keep, to bring to Shabbat from that day, which is there is a big deal of preparation also towards Shabbat, trying to look at our weeks. I will invite you now to turn your Shirim to page 134. This is a part of Psalm 98. And before we do that, I need another reader. Can I ask for a reader? The first reading about prayer. Ruth, is you? Is that you? I'm gonna. You are one of my favorite readers. What can I do, Ruth? Like every time I say, "Can I ask for a reader?" I look at her. So
About prayer, by the well-known Rabbi Nico Sokolovsky. Prayer is not a theological manifest. It is not the description of the reality, but rather the expression of the reality that we want to see, believe in, and hold on to, even if just for a short period of time. Prayer is our attempt to bring our humanity as a whole to a higher level. Prayer is an invitation to reconnect with our sometimes neglected sense of wonder. When we pray, we trace the line that unearths our emotions, desires, deepest yearnings, and yes, our internal contradictions. So, how does it work? Because prayer is a journey. Every time we pray, we begin in one place and hopefully we end at another. Some people will be uplifted by the liturgical text. Some will be moved by the beauty of the melodies. Others will be enchanted by the mystic sound of Hebrew. And yet for others, the presence and the togetherness of the community will represent the highest spiritual expression. There are moments of singing aloud, of reading, of deep silence, of listening, of reflecting. As Rabbi Zalman Schachter Shalomi said, prayer to me is not a luxury but a necessity, a safeguard for our survival and our sanity. May we find the path, the rhythm, the sound, the word, and the silence that helps us fulfill this basic need of connecting with our own souls and with each other.
On page 194, we think about the word sambru as singing and also as trimming.
134.
134, sorry. Page 134. And we think about the word sambru. Lezameri means to sing and also to trim. And in Shabbat, we sometimes need to trim the edges, the things that we are carrying that we shouldn't. So we try to take each one of these psalms, each one of these melodies, literally as a step in a stairway to help us enter a world in time, a different space. בכינו בכל זמרה שמחו לאדוני בכינו בכל זמרה שמחו לאדוני בכינו בכינור בכל זמרה. Page 136, Psalm 29, which is the sixth psalm of Kabbalat Shabbat, which stands in front of what? In front of the creation of humanity. The sixth day of creation, we were created. And so Shabbat is an invitation also to think about our own creation, our own existence, and about our ability to recreate ourselves. Understanding that the world is an unfolding creation, it's in constant creation. We'll sing 3 sections out of Psalm 29. And we have been doing this melody for some time. There are many. And I'm so tempted to teach you many other melodies for this. But we'll remain with this one for a few more weeks. And then we will announce that we're going to change it and we'll teach you some others. Because there should be many sounds to the creation of humanity. At least to that. We're going to sing the first 2 verses. And then on page 137, we will sing the last verse. Mizmor leDavid, Abu l'Adonai b'nei Elim. Mizmor leDavid, Abu l'Adonai kavod laos. Mizmor leDavid, Abu l'Adonai b'nei Elim. Mizmor leDavid, Abu l'Adonai kavod laos. Abu l'Adonai kavod laos. Abu l'Adonai kavod shemo. Abu l'Adonai kavod laos. Abu l'Adonai kavod shemo. Yai rai rai, ya la rai 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 rai, ya la rai 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 rai. Ai rai rai, ya la rai 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 rai. Ai rai rai. Adonai os lamohiten, Adonai yevarech et amo bashalom. Adonai os lamohiten, Adonai yevarech et amo bashalom. Ai rai rai, ya la rai 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 rai. Ai rai rai rai. Ai rai rai, ya la rai 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 rai. Ai rai rai. Adonai os lamohiten, Adonai yevarech et amo bashalom. Adonai os lamohiten, Adonai yevarech et amo bashalom. We'll now turn our Sidurim to page 138. And once again, time for a quick story. Lecha Dodi, and I think it's written which exact year was written here. I think it was 1540, but you know, don't check my numbers ever because then you will at least these numbers. I think it was written in 1540. And Lechadodi comes in this context of these seekers of spirituality. You know where it was written? In the city of Tzfat. The city of Tzfat, we have all these Jews that were trying to seek or seeking for a connection that was different, that was beyond what they had until that moment. And most of the Kabbalistic developments that are part of our practice today, as Kabbalat Shabbat, come from there. The biggest enterprise or the most popular enterprise of the Kabbalah is the service that we all do, and it comes from there. It doesn't come from rabbinical Judaism or from the Geonim. The way we do Kabbalat Shabbat comes from these mystic rabbis and thinkers and families and people. And the beautiful story is that they used to go to welcome Shabbat into the fields and dance and sing. And they needed liturgy. And the even more beautiful thing is that they brought the liturgy that comes from the tradition, from the Psalms, but they also wrote songs that are deeply informed by the language of Torah. They wrote poetry. The Lechadodi is a poem. It's a piyut that was written by a rabbi whose name was Shlomo Alkabetz. His name is right here. Shmor, Likrat, Mikdash, Itoreri, Shlomo. Hey, Lamed, etc., etc., etc. Well, there are initials. Shlomo, the second name I don't remember, and then Alkabetz was his last name. Anyway, the point is that they wanted to leave a stamp. They wanted to have a meaningful life, and they found it through this work of this celebration of Shabbat. I will add one more thing. There are 9 verses to Lechadodi. We're going to sing only 5 of them. And a lot of the language of Lechadodi is related to a language that somehow address the destruction of the Temple of Jerusalem. Kumi ori, titoreri, mi afar kumi. Wake up from sleeping in the dust. Who is supposed to wake up? Well, the destroyed city of Jerusalem, the destroyed Temple of Jerusalem, but also it's an invitation for us to spiritually awaken. Last thing, for the last verse of Lechadodi, we stand up. There are 2 explanations to that. The one I share every Shabbat is we turn toward the entrance of the synagogue and we welcome the Shabbos bride. There's another explanation to that. And it was that this big celebration, this big singing, wasn't a good fit for all the members of the community that were praying together, particularly for mourners. There were mourners that didn't feel that it was the right time for them to be at services. So at the end of Lechadodi, the community would stand up toward them and acknowledge their presence, their coming in. And these 2 things at some point got connected, that we stand up for the last verse of Lechadodi and that we stand up and turn toward the mourners. And after Lechadodi, we sing 2 more psalms. We are not going to sing them, one of them, yes. And then we will go into Mariv Shel Shabbat. We'll go a bit faster with Mariv Shel Shabbat because I want to be mindful of our time frame. So on page 138, we will sing Lechadodi. We will sing the first, the second, the fifth, the 6th, and the 9 verses of Lechadodi. In number 9, I will invite you to rise and to turn toward the entrance of our Beit Filah, our house of prayer, to welcome the spirit of Shabbat, and to welcome each other also, as we do, as is our tradition here at Shir Hadash. Lechadodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekavela. Lechadodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekavela. שמור וספור בדיבור אחד, ישמיענו אל המיוחד. אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, לשם ולתפארת ולתהילה. לחרדי לקראת קהלה, בני שבת וקהלה. לקראת כלה, הנה שבת נקרבנה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי היא מכל המלאכה. בראש מכם נסוכה, סוף מעשה ומחשבה תחילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, הנה שבת נקרבנה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, הנה שבת נקרבנה. התעוררי,
כי באורך קומי אורי, אורי אורי, שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. לך דודי
לקראת כלה, הנה שבת נקרבנה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, הנה שבת נקרבנה. לא תבושי ולא תיכהלמי, מה תשתוכחי ומה תאמי. בך יחסו עניי ימין, ונבנתה עיר על פינה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, הנה שבת נקרבנה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, הנה שבת נקרבנה. אוי ושלום עטרת ועלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה. תוך אמוני עם סגולה, בואי חלה, בואי חלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, הנה שבת נקרבנה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, הנה שבת נקרבנה. Now that we have welcome Shabbat, we'll take 2 minutes to welcome each other, to say Shabbat Shalom to each other. So I encourage you to move around the room and to say good Shabbos to each other. And take a moment, if you acknowledge, if you see a face that you don't know, or a face that you haven't seen for some time, go to that face and say good Shabbos. We will now turn our Sidurim to page 140. 140 for Mizmor Shir ליום השבת. מזמור שיר, שיר 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 ליום השבת. שיר ליום השבת. מזמור שיר, שיר ליום השבת. מזמור שיר, שיר ליום won't stop in that one, but there's another psalm. That's the last one. That's number 7. and you see the beautiful thing? So we go from the Hadash to Psalm 92. So we dedicate to Shabbat the psalm, and then we go to Psalm. It's in the next page, my friends. You can look. 93, so we go up. The entire idea of Shabbat is to lift up ourselves, to do the work of uplifting ourselves. And here's the another worship component. Jewish prayer, structure of Jewish prayer from Aleph to Taf, from the beginning to the end, tomorrow morning. Why? Because the most complete Jewish prayer we have is the morning one. How many prayers we have a day? Say 3? Say 3. You're
3.
Right. Good. So thank you for participating. Thank you for participating. You are so responsive. You know, I always say that when you hear crickets, right, you need to understand that you are in Egypt and there's a plague. So be careful. so you need to be careful with that. Anyway, just saying. Anyway, structure of Jewish prayer, the whole enchilada is on the morning. It's during the morning service. During the morning service, we have all the components. Mincha, the one in the afternoon, is shorter. There's a huge piece that is absent from that, and is the piece of what? The Shema. The Shema is not there. It's not in Mincha, in the afternoon prayer. We pretty much go, we say Ashrei. We say a few more prayers, depends what kind of minhag, custom you have. And then we go straight forward into the Amidah. By Amidah, I mean what is often called tefillah. Tefillah is prayer. And Filat Amidah is the standing prayer, which is the central prayer we have. Story. The Reform movement started to stand for the Shema because they were trying to imitate in the Shema the importance of the standing prayer, of the Amidah. When we kind of reorganized prayer years later, we started to say, well, you don't really have to stand for the Shema. you need to stand for the Amidah, but not for the Shema, and that's one of the things that you sometimes see. How do we know that? Well, Rabbi spoke about that, but when you say Be'afta, we say when you are sitting in your house and when you're walking. So you need to be able to do both. And as a matter of fact, the most common Shema is where? In bed. You're laying down. So the standing for the Shema is a thing that was done in order to give to the Shema a different kind of importance. It's a statement. Now, last thing. In the morning we have a section that is filled with blessings. We call it Odaya, a section of gratitude. And we go from gratitude then to the Psukei de Simra, the songs of praise, in which kind of is a workout for our souls. We sing, and we try to lift up our spirits. And from that place, we go into the Shema. The big gap that the rabbis were feeling was that on Friday night, they wanted, that the Jews were feeling, they wanted more. They wanted to have a sense of excitement that they knew from the morning prayers, that they knew from the Psukei de Simra, from the songs of praise that are mostly psalms. And they wanted to take that to Friday nights to enter the Shema and that time of unity or knowledge, we'll talk about that later, with a uplifted spirit. So that's the purpose of Kabbalat Shabbat. And the Kabbalat Shabbat, the section that we just did, is in conversation with the section of Psukei de Simra, of songs of praise, that we do every single morning. Different psalms, but totally in conversation. We will now distinguish between these two things when we want to make distinction in Jewish prayer, particularly in the liberal movements. We say Hetzi Kaddish. That's the purpose of Hetzi Kaddish, to distinguish between sections in the service. As a matter of fact, Kaddish is a prayer of transition always, or mostly always. Never in our tradition, because there is a Kaddish, the Rabbanan. For rabbis, different story, but most of the time, prayer of transition. So on page 144, Hetzi Kaddish, we will transition between Kabbalah Shabbat and Arbit Shabbat, the evening prayer of Shabbat. יתגדל ויתקדש שמר רבה.
אמן.
יאמר יברח ילותה וימליך מלכותה
חייכון
בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל. בגלה בגלה ובזמן כהנים אמרו
אמן. השמע אבא ממורה מעולם ולעולם מהלמיה
יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלל שם קודשה להילה מן כל ברכתה לשירתה ושמחתה ונחמתה דמירם ועלמה אמרו Amen. We're on page 146. Please rise. Even for Barhu, you don't have to come, but for Barhu, the word Barhu, bless, is almost the same word as the word Berech, knee. That's why we move our knees a little bit when we say Barhu. We bring ourselves down also as a symbol of humility. As we enter the area of the Shema, we will say that God is one. We'll remember that when we say that God is one, what we mean is also is that all human beings were created in the image of God. And for Barhu, you need a minyan, you need a community. Understanding that the unity of God cannot be said fully out loud if you don't have a society, a group of diverse people surrounding you. Baruch et Adonai Amevorach. Seated. And after Baruch, and as we get closer to the Shema, we take a moment to say a blessing that will invite us to look around the world and to say that this world was created for us. The structure in morning and in evening. We say together in the middle of page 148. Please join me. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time, and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, drawing light away from darkness, and darkness from light, transforming day into night, and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai, Tzevaot is your name. Ever-living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on evening. Baruch Ata Adonai, Arim. Prayer of gratitude for the ability to distinguish time, to recognize the varieties of light. And if we didn't get it when we went into shelter in place, we started to understand the importance of being able to recognize the distinction between days and between different shades of light. And as we turn our Sidurim to page 150, there's something around the Shema called the sandwich of love. The Shema is always surrounded by two prayers that are related to love. We say in the evening, Abat Olam, and in the morning we say Ahava Rabbah. We say, an everlasting love you have offered your people Israel. And in the morning we say how deeply you have loved us. The idea is that we can only say that we are one with God if we feel deeply loved by this universe. If we feel that nature is a gift that was given to us, and we can say that the entire universe, the entire world, was created for me, for us, for you. And from that place, we say, dear God, please never remove your love from us. That's how we seal this blessing. And then we say the Shema. And immediately after saying the Shema, what do we say? Be'afta, you shall love. From that perception of love, we say the Shema, and then we engage in loving this world. So, thinking about what makes you feel loved, I invite you to close your eyes for a moment and to try to think what's for you a source of everlasting love, of deep love. That idea in your heart, hold on to that as we say, dear God, never remove your love from us. Praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Israel. We will now turn our Sidurim to page 152 for the Shema. Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
And some people have asked me why I say the second sentence of the Shema so quietly. And the reason is because traditionally, this sentence was answered by the angels and not by humans. It is a part of our liturgy. And we say that almost by definition more quietly. We try to say it more quietly. Not that we don't say that. We say that very, very quietly. And I think that it's important to recognize when we are praying, and also in life, that not everything is supposed to be said in the same tone, with the same voice. That we have the power and the ability to use different tones for different things. And the Shema is that case. It's an invitation of our tradition to be mindful of that. Let's chant together on page 154. Be'ahavta
בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשופטך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על משושות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי ויתן קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם אלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם אמת אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. Reality is that we think that Shema ends there, but actually
The Shema ends a blessing later with the blessing for redemption in Mi Chamocha. So when you see pages 156 and 158, Mi Chamocha, which we think is completely different, no, part of the same thing. And I think there's a beautiful rationale, or I want to offer a rationale for that, a quick one. And it's this idea that in the blessing for redemption, we are talking about obstacles, like situations that are impossible. Now, the ceiling, when we want to know what's the topic of a blessing, you need to go to the last sentence. The last sentence tells you what we are talking about, right? It's a rule. That's how our rabbis build our liturgy. Does it say, Adonai redeemed Jacob from a hand stronger than his own? Praise are you, Adonai, for redeeming Israel. So this is the blessing for redemption. Now, redemption of what? Well, we Michamocha Be'elim Adonai, this is a part of the Song of the Sea. So the image that we bring is the image of liberation. That's why people say it's a song of freedom. The blessing for redemption, a song of freedom. Why is a song of freedom? Because it's a part of the Song of the Sea. There are some verses from the Song of the Sea that is sung by the Israelites as they are crossing the Sea of Reeds. And also I want to say that it's actually related to this idea that prayer is supposed to be about the text that we have in our lives right now. That's what makes prayer real. The structure of the tradition is for us to be a meditative structure. When we think about what makes you feel loved, well, the tradition is talking about the transition of time. But I don't know if that's what is hitting it for you tonight. So you need to do the work of figuring that out. If you want for your prayer to be real, you need to ask yourself, what's making me feel loved tonight? Or how do I engage actively in loving my way through tonight, this week? And then, when you get to page 158, I think that the question is, what does it look like in my life? What does it look like the Sea of Reeds, a huge obstacle, something that it feels like impossible to overcome in my life today? And what does it take for me? What would look like for me to make a step forward? And from that place, we conclude the reign of the Shema, knowing that we have the ability and the capacity to recognize love in our lives, understanding that we have the capacity to actively love, and then that we have the strength to face our obstacles and to move forward with faith. So I invite you to think about that, about your Sea of Reeds tonight. We're on page 158. מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילות תוסף אלה, נורא תהילות תוסף אלה, היי 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 מלכותך ואהובנך, בוקע לפני משה ומרים, זה אלי אנו ועמנו, Jacob from a hand stronger than his own. Praise are you, Adonai, for redeeming Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Gahal Israel. Page 160, the Jewish lullaby. Ashkibeinu is our lullaby. That's what we sing to our children. Some of us sing to our children when they go to sleep. You need to sing it to yourself also. That counts too. And it's a reminder of seeking for internal peace and for becoming builders of that peace. To ask for it and to become it. Ashkiveinu Adonai Eloheinu leShalom ve'amidenu shomerenu lechaim. Ashkiveinu Adonai Eloheinu leShalom ve'amidenu shomerenu lechaim. Sorry, I confused you. I have one sentence. Let's go. Ushmor setenu uvohenu lechaim u'leshalom lechaim u'shalom מעתה ועד עולם מעתה ועד עולם. השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום ועמידנו שומרנו לחיים. השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום ועמידנו שומרנו לחיים. Blessed are you, Adonai, guardian of Israel, shelter of peace. This is spread over us, over all your people Israel, and over the city of Shalom, the holy city of Jerusalem. Amen. Now, page 162. You see that the Shambru is there? It's an alien, it's an insert. And the reason it's there is to tell you, now you're going to go eat on Tfilat Amidah. Careful there. It's Shabbat. Mind your words. That's exactly the reason this is here. Is to remind us, before you say the Amidah, that you need to aspire to a different kind of thinking. If during the week when you are kind of praying and doing your Amidah prayer, you are kind of, your laundry list, your grocery list, aspire to something higher than that tonight or tomorrow morning. And that's the reason we have like a reminder of Shabbat before getting into the Amidah. So we will take a moment for that, and then I will say that Amidah in Shabbat is how many blessings we have in the 18 blessings of the Amidah? 19. Now, I know. So, sorry. The rabbinical Judaism is complex. But we call it the 18 blessings. There are 19. There was one that was added later. But in Shabbat, we do the 3 of the beginning, the 3 of the end, and we do a special one in the middle for Shabbat. So it's a very short version of the 18/19 blessings that we recite during the days of the week. So 3 first blessings. One is about our connection. We enter a palace and we say, I am the child of all these people. So I just wanted to let you know, I want to let you know that I'm of kosher. So I think I have some right to stay in front of you and say a few words here. And then the second one is, Gburot. It's a reminder day. It's a reminder. Baruch atah Adonai, we say, Mechaye Akol. Now, the reason we say Akol, I make this long story short. You will hear me saying Metim, the deaf. There's a reason for that. I think that the call is wrong. And I think also that each of us has the right to pray whatever you want. The reason I say Metim is because I don't think that prayer can be a theological statement. Because at the moment that prayer becomes a theological statement, I don't know if I know. I can't sign after every single word that we have in the Siddur. I don't want to sign. Did you read the text I wrote? I can't. The first thing I say is not a theological statement. Why? Because I think that this is a metaphorical statement. And in that world of metaphors, I want to be allowed to go wherever. I want to be allowed to go to the death also. I don't need to shift the word to feel more comfortable. This is an adjustment that the Reform movement made many years ago when there was a liturgical argument. It was an important one that we need to really mean what we say. So if you didn't believe in the metim, in the death component, you should say something else. And so we shifted that to everything, which was kind of a way to deal with that. But I like, and I say this, I became very intentional about this since my mom passed away. When my mom passed away, I was like, I'm saying metim. I'm every single day, at every single time that I think about my mom, I deal with the reality that she passed away. I know that. I know she's not coming back. But in prayer, I can allow that fantasy to be real from time to time. It's not that every single time I pray, I hold on to that idea. But when I'm praying, sometimes I say, metim, I know exactly which metim we are talking about, because this is personal. And from that place, we come to God and we say, we want to have lives that are meaningful. We want to be able to remember our beloved ones, and more than that, we want to be remembered. We want the two things. And from that place, we stand with strength, with Geburah, in front of the divine presence. Number 3 is Kedusha, is when we enter the holy space in which the Sanctus Sanctorum is, and the Kisei Kavod, the throne of glory. And from that place, we usually remain quiet because that's your journey, your business. So we sing the Kedusha out loud on Friday nights, on Saturday mornings, and on Friday nights we go all the time quiet. Last component about prayer and about this tefillah is your opportunity to say what you need to say. Tefillat Amidah is the moment that we are achieving in a service after being grateful, after uplifting our souls, and after feeling one with God. It's kind of the last thing in which we get to say what we want to say. The words are here, but we say also that we want to give space to a prayer of our heart. And what we try to find is the clarity and the intentionality for what we really, really want and need. As opposed to be all over the place to say, well, these are all the things I want or I need, which is how we sometimes function in our lives. Now we are all over. Or many of us are all over. I don't want to accuse everybody here. The Amidah is a moment to find clarity, to try to say, when I say this word, or when I'm thinking about this specific thing, I want to be specific. I want to have a clear idea. I want to find direction. And we find that direction by articulating a request. So this area is called request. And it's when we get to make our requests. So remembering that it is Shabbat, in Beshamru, we will please, I invite you to please rise and turn your Sidurim to page 164. We'll sing the first words of the Amidah together. We will ask to be able to open our hearts and our mouths in a way that honors what we are looking for, what we are seeking for, and then we will continue in silence. Adonai, Sefatai tiftach, ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. We continue in silence. רצון אמרי פי, בהגיון ליבי לפניך אדוני, צולי בגואלי. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable to you, be in line with what I aspire to be. Adonai, my rock and my redeemer, עושה שלום. במרומיו, may the one who makes peace in the high heavens make peace for us, for all Israel, and all who inhabit the earth. And let us say,
Amen.
at the end of Tfilat Amidah, we take a moment to acknowledge those that are dealing with illness. I invite you to turn your Sidurim to page 371 for Mishe Berach. And in this Shabbat of learning about things, I will tell you that this is one of the wonderful additions that liberal Judaism brought. Because the prayer for healing is not a part of the traditional ritual of Friday night. Because you are supposed to only focus on the joy of Shabbat. I think that our movement did add to bring the space for our pain, for our yearnings of healing also into the liturgy of Shabbat. I need to find the page. Well, I'll find. So I know the page there, but I have a siddur that is not mine actually. And I started with the brackets. Almost there. Almost. They're actually mine also, because it's well used. It's easier to pass the pages. These are very kind of, they're perfect, they're very slick. So we take a moment to acknowledge those that are dealing with illness in their souls, in their bodies, those that are carrying grief, and those that are dealing with addictions. If there's a name that you like to share in this set of Shabbat, I invite you to do so as we go around the room. We're thinking of Richard Kennemer, Jack Long, Cindy Gordon, Bruce Roberts, Stuart Mass, Alfreda Mastman, Diane Siegel, Jill Becker, Gail Frankel, Scott Bangundi, Debbie Pink, Daphne Talmor, Mira Engel, Jill Jackno, Dave Stoll, Greg Herb, Michelle Wiener, Murray Siegel, Maggie Scardigli, Denise Pringle, Lonnie Goldman, Richard Rabich, Bernice Paris, Adam Kaufman, Ian Ballard, Franklin Wilson, Barda Saadhi, Andy Talbot, and Irina Greenwald. We're on page 371, prayer for healing, Sheberach.
May the souls of strength
you, to all of us, refuah shlema, a complete and a speedy, as much as possible, recovery. So I will make some quick remarks about a few things. Understand that I have used all my speaking time on prayer, but there are so many things happening in the world, I couldn't. I was about not to say anything, but then I realized that when the world is so messy, you got to say something. And but because this is a worship, one moment about the context of Divrei Torah, of the Torah speeches. True that probably the model of how we do Torah speeches, Divrei Torah, on Friday nights today, the preacher model, is probably something that we learn from Christianity. That being said, we were there before. Well, not exactly in this model, but in the Talmud we know, and we know about the figure of the darshan. Darshan is one who would inquire in the text and tell stories. And we also know from many years before, and this is also in the Talmud, but particularly during the time of the upbringing of the Hasidic movement, the role of the Magid. Magid is a teacher, is a rabbi usually also, but it's a teller. A Magid is a teller. And a Magid sometimes is a teller that a little bit tells you stories and sings throughout. So there are all kind of context for our sermons. That being said, the more modern structure of preaching, including a senior sermon in most rabbinical schools, is certainly not a Jewish thing from like 2,000 years ago. It's probably something new that we learn in the context of being in conversation with different cultures and traditions. And it's an important thing to acknowledge that we also learn from our friends. So I just wanted to share that I was about to say a few words and then I decided that I wasn't going to speak. And then I went back and forth and I changed what I wanted to say like 5 times. And the reason for that is because sometimes the world feels a bit overwhelming. And today is one of those days. Today is one of those days in which kind of there are things all over that are in my heart and might be in your heart. And it feels, to some extent, overwhelming. And when we feel overwhelmed by the circumstances of the world, many of us tend to think or feel that we are like bystanders. We are standing and we are looking at the world and these things happening. And I'll give you a few examples. Today, these lunatics decided that today, tomorrow, there was going to be a day of hatred against the Jewish people. Now, Shabbat, a day of love, and then we are dealing with the day of hatred. It was a plan. We don't know if it's going to materialize, but we have contacted the police. We need to engage in this mishigase. That someone was, while we were thinking about our worship, there are others that are out there engaged in hating us. And that hatred is, I don't know where it's coming from, but there's very little to do with that. Besides focusing on Semitism and in Jewish identity and strengthening what we do together. And today is it's the year anniversary of the immoral Russian invasion to Ukraine. And it was a big part of what we were dealing with for a very long time. And now, it's a year. People are dying. At some point, kind of we turn it off. It's too difficult to be all the time on. And this week, the first draft of a legislation that puts the identity of the state of Israel in danger passed in the Knesset, in the Israeli parliament. Now, the judicial reform is a big deal, and for many of us, or in the eyes of many of us, a danger. A danger because it jeopardizes the the structure that the Zionist movement brought to the foundation of the State of Israel, which is Jewish and democratic. So we might remain Jewish that way, but not democratic. And as a matter of fact, for many of us, the value of diversity, the value of having a variety of voices, of engaging in discussion, of the multiplicity of voices, is a deeply rooted Jewish value. And the ramifications of that legislation is not only the change in the Beit HaMishpat, in the courts, in the judicial system, but the laws that will come immediately after that. Some of them are known to us and placing in risk to some in a big extent, the relationship between the Jews in the diaspora and the State of Israel. And thinking about this idea that when all these things that feel so overwhelming, they come together, I feel, or some of us might feel like bystanders. There's a very nice framework that this Torah portion, Parashat Truma, offers to engage in the transition from a bystander to, I like the word, beholder, from holding on, from carrying on, to becoming a carrier, to becoming an owner. This is the Torah portion in which we learn about the initial contributions to make the Mishkan, the tabernacle. And we learn that Ish kenedavat livo, like every person according to their hearts. We call it at Shir Hadash, fair share. Now, each person, but the important component, that everybody needs to give something. Why? Well, not only because the name of this Torah portion is Truma, which literally means contribution, donation, also because anybody needs to be a shareholder in the Mishkan. And we learn a few verses later in the Torah portion, this very emblematic sentence that we sometimes don't know what to do with. We'll try to make sense of it tonight. V'asu li mikdash, v'shachanti betocham, and they will build for me a sanctuary, and I will dwell among them. So if we are building the sanctuary for God, why then God will be somewhere else? Like if we build for God this beautiful little box, why is God not willing to be there? And the answer to that is because those that need to build are us. That in order for us to move from being bystanders and to become carriers, holders, owners, we need to recognize that we are the builders. That doesn't mean that God will be there. It means that we will have the intention of building a physical place for God. That's going to be a tangible one, but the real one that we are building is one within our hearts. The Hasidic masters teach that the word, within the word truma, contribution, you can find the word ram, which you might know the word romemu, we say romemu, which is to uplift something. And the idea is that the giving, the truma, the contribution, becomes something that uplifts the giver. And when I'm uplifted, making a truma, bringing my contribution, I'm creating the space to be a carrier of that which is very, very important to me. And so the question is, when I'm feeling overwhelmed by the reality of a world that sometimes feels that is completely over my head, the question is, how do I build a mishkan, a place to hold those challenges or those things that are meaningful to me? How do I build a Mishkan to hold this hatred, this lunatic hatred. Well, I can't do anything with that hatred, but I can build a tabernacle to hold the love that I have for Jewish tradition and make a contribution to build that. And those contributions can be financial contributions, can be presence contribution, devotion contribution, can be contributing your social media wall. But the idea is that when I feel overwhelmed by the reality, the question I need to ask myself is what I'm willing to contribute, to give, and then to start building a Mishkan. And the same thing, number two, at least for me, this week, was the war in Ukraine. I don't know what to do with Zelensky and Putin. But I know that there are a few families of refugees in our city. So maybe I need to get a bit more involved. Maybe I need to do a few more things in that respect. And about what I believe is a political crisis in Israel, well, we are doing all kinds of things. But in the meantime, the basic thing that we can do, we can show up to the demonstration in San Francisco this Sunday at 2 p.m. I'll be there. I'll show up. Why? Because I want, when the pictures from all over the world are seen by politicians in Israel, I want people to see that it was full everywhere. Everywhere. That Zionists, this is an act of Zionism in my opinion, from all over the world show up to say that we are unhappy with these developments. I will show out also for Yom Ha'atzmaut. Rabbi Schwartz and I made a decision, for those that have children in Kulanu, just for you to know, in the celebration of Yom Ha'atzmaut this year, Independence Day in the state of Israel, which is going to be in Redwood City in April 30th. We are going to be taking our children, all of them. So we are going to move Kulanu to Redwood City, and we're figuring out if we are going to take buses or if we are going to have 3,000 parents carpooling. We'll figure that out. But what we decided is that we are going to show up. And that's how we start building our tabernacle. And I want to share one more thing, piece of Talmudic wisdom, that says, "Lo alecha hamlacha ligmor velo ata ben chorin levatel mimena." You are not obligated to finish the work. And the word melacha is in the context of the prohibitions that were given to us, in the context of building that Mishkan. You are not supposed to finish the work of building that Mishkan, or creating a space to carry that meaning, but you don't have the freedom to refrain from engaging in that work. Lo alecha hamlacha ligmor velo ata ben chorim leivatel mimena, and you cannot refrain from engaging in that work. So in this Shabbat that might be overwhelming, I think that we can fill ourselves with the hope that we have the ability to be builders of tabernacles, wherever we recognize that they are needed. There might be in the society, there might be in the world, there might be in some faraway country in Europe, there might be in our homes, things that we need to rectify. But we have the ability, the strength, and the power to be carriers and builders of the world that we want to experience and see. Shabbat Shalom. So if we have a few children under the age of 13, I'd like to invite you to open the ark. We are going to recite a few words from Aleinu, which is on page 586. And a quick comment, these are called prayers of descent, which means that if you were spiritually lifted, then we say Aleinu to descend. Please rise as we open the ark. It's on, you go. I know, in a Gilad. Or whoever is here. Oh, you're here too. Come on. עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גאולה יוצר בראשית,
שלא עשנו כגויים.
לאחד את שמו, אנחנו קוראים
ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. By the way, the only place in which the words לתקן עולם, תיקון עולם appear in our prayers in the middle of עלינו that we usually omit. So if you want to find it, it's right there. It's in the context of creating a better world for future generations. We are going now to turn our study into page 590. כתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם באר, ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ. ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד. Thank you, my friends. You may be seated. We take a moment now to acknowledge mourners in our community. If you are doing the first 30 days of mourning, please rise and share with us who you're remembering. If you are doing the first 30 days of mourning, please rise and share with us who you're remembering. Did I say 30 at the beginning as well? 7 days. Shiva. 30 days. It's the cycle of the first 11 months of mourning. Please rise and share with us who you're remembering. If you have your day this week, the anniversary of someone's passing by this time of the year in years past, please. Our congregation remembers Bob Sterman, Lenora Wang, Adam Richard Spilka, Shlomo Asips, Howard Levine, Barbara Lambert, Claire London, Drago Ehrman, Mary Greenwald, Samuel Greenwald, Anita Komula, Bryce Lyon, Edna Stone, Miriam Davids, Lauren Janovich, Janet Wall, Charlene Kilgore, Ezra Sahati, Gideon Hofer, Alvin Kramer Siegel, Blasta Bechnovic, Galina Butorina, Karen Imbalsano, Lillian Berman, Robert Bruce Meyers, Abraham Carras, Scott Fadi, Norman Green, Marilyn Silverman, Leslie Achnal, David Green, Jenny Porush, Estelle Abrams, Spencer Canny, Arthur Cherdak, John Leveres, Marilyn Handelman, Kay Damron, Nira Marom, Andrea Cameron, Siva Farusan, Rosella Newton, Linda Sherry, Fred De Castro, Sherry Sikiahan, Larry Eisen, Harry Gross, Michael Taub, David Schwartz, Rhoda Freeman, Eliad Foner Lipsitz. And for your sites, we have Elsa Leiter Kean, Hannah Lieberman, Henry Lipsy, Isidor Taub, Marvin Heller, and Rennie Berman. You can now support our fellows while standing or sitting, joining us with your voices and your hearts for Mourners Kadesh, Kaddish Avelim on page 598. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה.
אמן.
בעלמא דברה חילותי בימליך מלכותי בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל בעגלה ובזמן קריב באמרו אמן. יהא שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולמי עלמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושילתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירם בעלמה ואמרו אמן. יהא שלמה רבה אמין שמיה בחיים טובים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו ויעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ואמרו אמן. May the memories of your dear ones be always a blessing in your life.
Yeh Zichram Baruch. You may be seated. Quick announcement. Tomorrow, same thing, a bit more sophisticated. But I'll try. I'll try to make it more sophisticated. So we start with Torah study at 9:30 a.m. and then services at 10:30 a.m. On Saturday, Jody, you are supposed to be doing the announcements. Okay, so I'll do it. But I think it's fine. I can do it. I feel confident I can do it. I just ask myself, was I supposed to do this? And I think it was Jody. But so I'm taking this. I feel very confident about this. Sunday, March 5th at 11:30 a.m. for families with children 5 and under. 12 to 2 p.m. for all ages. Our Purim Carnival is back. Get discounted pre-sale tickets on our website. Monday, March 6th, we have our congregation-wide Purim celebration. Purim dinner at 6 p.m., followed by service, Spiel, and Megillah reading earlier than 7 p.m. Please register on the website. And the last Nashim class will be on March 2nd at 11:30 a.m. We encourage you to join us. Now, last thing. So you're never told that you didn't know. So you can say that you know the entire structure of Shabbat evening services. I invite you to turn your Siddurim to page 182. This was it. This was Kabbalat Shabbat. And there was one more paragraph here. It was shorter in our Siddur. New liberal Siddurim and the Reform Siddur from Israel in English now has that paragraph that we are missing here. But this was Kabbalat Shabbat in the version that the rabbis created. And this is actually an intro to Kiddush. Before we raise our cups, when you hear me, it's in page 122 or 21, Vaychul Hashamayim Ba'aretz V'chol Tzebah, in the end of the first chapter of the book of Genesis, that is part of the Kiddush structure, was moved to that page, but actually belongs in this area. And from this, we go to Kiddush. So we are not going to chant the entire thing, even though there are beautiful chantings. Beautiful chantings for this, and maybe at some point we'll learn some of them, but we are going to go into Kiddush. But I just want you to know that all the things that we did at the beginning of the service until Bahu came to be an addition to these 3 verses. Now, I'm about to turn your Siddurim to page 121 for Kiddush, Shel Yom HaShishi, or Friday. Can you help me out? No, I can't. Thank you. So, no, 22 then, my friends. I apologize. 122. So for some people, it's customary to rise for Kiddush. So I invite you to rise tonight for Kiddush. We say, Vayerev vayivoker yom hashishi vaychulu hashamayim ba'aretz bechol tzeba'am vaychal Elohim biyom hashbihi melachto asher asa vayishvot biyom hashbihi mikol melachto asher asa ויברך אלוהים את יום השביעי, ויקדש אותו, כי בו שבת מכל מלאכתו, אשר ברא אלוהים לעשות. I want you to notice the last sentence that says that God created in order to do. אשר ברא אלוהים לעשות. The translation doesn't cut it. But this idea that the world was created in order for us to become doers, to become partners in the action of creation. Shabbat is a reminder that we are partners in the creation, and that the world, as we know it, is an unfolding creation. It's not fully created. And we will engage on recreating the world Saturday night. In the meantime, rest. Sabri חבריי וחברותיי יום כזה לחיים. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם בורא פרי הגפם. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר קידשנו במצוותיו ברצה בנו בשבת קודשו
באהבה וברצון הנחילנו זיכרון למעשה בראשית כי יום תחילה למקראי קודש זכר ליציאת מצרים כי בנו בחרת ויודענו קידשת עם כל העמים בשבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת לחיים. And it is it's a beautiful tradition to take a moment, families often bless their children at the Shabbat table. And the entire idea is that in Shabbat, you take a moment to acknowledge your creations and you bless them. Whether you have children, whether you have no children, we are all creating something. We are all creators of something that we feel deeply proud of that make us feel connected to the world, that feels like our stamp in the world. We are also someone else's creations. So this is a great opportunity to think about those that we would like to have their hands in our heads as we recite blessings for the creation of loving connections. We'll say, may God inspire you to be like the loving parents of Israel, like Ephraim, Menashe, like Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Pelea. Simchem Elohim, Ephraim Menashe, Simchem Elohim, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Pelea. And we say to all of them, to all of you, Yevrechem Adonai, Beish Merechem. May God bless you and protect you. Adonai Panav Elechem, Bichunekem. May God's light shine upon you and may God be gracious to you. Isa Adonai Panav Elechem. May you find within you always God's presence, God's light, and may you find integrity, strength, so you don't feel overwhelmed by the world, but you feel that you have the ability to create the world, to shape the world as you want to see it, as you want to experience it. And may you find the strength to receive the most beautiful gift that God has given to us, which is the gift of shalom, of wholeness. Ve'asem lachem shalom. Adonai os le'amo iten. Adonai yevarech et amav b'shalom. Shabbat shalom, everybody. Shabbat shalom, mevorach. Ya era, era, era. Ya ra, ra, era, era, era. Shabbat shalom. Ya era, era, era. Ya era, era, era. Open page 3 in your handouts. It's written in this Torah portion. Ya era, era. הכנתי לתוכם ואנחנו נברך ים מעתה ועד עולם. Oh God, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true. With thanksgiving, I'll be a living sanctuary for you. Good Shabbos, everybody. Shabbat shalom. You want to do a motzi? Ya,